You're allowed. 6:30.
Alright.
Right, Penta. I vote no.
Alright, thanks.
In a bit.
Yeah, and Spoonie was supposed to get on Zoom as well. All right, I think we're all good if you want to go ahead and start. Yeah. Yeah, James and, Roy are both on.
Okay. All right, welcome everyone, to the Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. It's, now 6:30, p.m. We're gonna go ahead and get started. We do have a quorum tonight. We have myself, Derek Parks as the chair. We have Mr. Scott here, and to my right, we have, Ms. Harris. And by Zoom, we have Leroy, and we have, James, also two members here. And for the city staff, we have Ben, Director of Development Services, and we have Emma, Planning and Zoning Manager. So moving down, we want to consider the approval of the minutes, from August the 1st of 2022. Commissioners, do y'all have any questions or concerns from the minutes of August the 1st of 2022? Okay, Leroy or James?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
No questions.
all right. And can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve minutes as presented.
Motion has been approved, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, ayes have it. The minutes have been approved from August the 1st of 2022. Move down the line for new business. We're looking at number 2, is to conduct a public hearing and consider a zoning change from Plan Development 56 to Plan Development 56R for the site plan package of a self-storage facility, meeting warehouse, on a site identified as Lot 1, Block A of Springfield Business Park, located on the southeast corner of North Highway 77 and Deer Creek Drive, and addressed as 101 Free Market Drive within the city limits of Ellis County, Texas. Case number D as in zebra, C as in cat, 22-30, requested by Jay Hilson.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is a request for the review of the site plan package for a self-storage facility on approximately 6 acres of land. The use is permitted by right per the originally approved PD ordinance. There are eight proposed self-storage buildings with access to the site from Free Market Drive and Shawnee Road. Common access easement will be provided from Free Market Drive that will serve the site and the remaining tracts in the future. An automatic sliding gate which leads to the common access easement will be provided on site. 6 feet tall masonry fence will be provided as screening from Shawnee Road, North Highway 77, and the residential properties to the east. Staff recommends approval of the request as presented, and on the screen it also shows the kind of the area where the property is located. The applicant, a representative, is available.
Just some additional background, I think, when this was originally done, the Free Market Drive was not there. It was done as part of an effort to get this to develop in a more of a commercial nature. And so the developer went ahead and put in Free Market, and as part of that, they did zoning on the property and zoned it to planned development, but they had a list of uses that would be allowed in there, and self-storage was one of them, provided it met some certain criteria. So through the review process, we made sure that it, at a bare minimum, met that criteria, as well as we massaged the site a little bit in terms of access and trying to make sure they had, fire had 2 points of access, as well as trying to not connect it into the neighboring subdivision here. and having most of the traffic that utilizes it, come in through the, kind of that main entrance there, off of Free Market, with the secondary off Shawnee. So the main entrance is off Free Market, with the office being up here in the front, and then, the access point for most people. And as you guys would know, that it's not gonna be a considerable amount of traffic, generated. It's come in there, they drop their stuff off, and they come every now and then to check on it, or load it up, or get it out. Some of the considerations were, wanting to not do what we have in the rest of the city, in some of the older storage units, which were just all metal buildings. These are gonna be, if you guys looked at your package, you can see that they were done with a stone facade, to give it a little bit less of an industrial look, considering it's in a kind of a residential area, but also just to give it a higher quality looking product. Fencing and landscaping was also a concern, and we worked with the developer quite a bit in making sure that there was an appropriate amount of landscaping. There's portions that have a masonry wall and portions that have kind of a security fence. And the security fence is along Free Market, which would basically back up to, future commercial would be backing up. So if we go back to that original layout, it's still set up where you can have some commercial, maybe like a small strip center with maybe 2-3 units in it or something, and then the same thing here, 1.5 acre, that's, really probably only enough for maybe probably one building, maybe 2 suites or something like that, because these are on septic, so they do have to leave quite a bit of room, for the septic spray fields, when they do develop. But these lot 2 and 3 here, they will also come back to you for approval of the site plans, similar to how this is being approved. Yeah.
And this is a, public hearing, tonight, so those that are in favor of this item, they can go first, please. Those that are against this item, go second. And if you have any questions, on the staff or individual here tonight, just represent.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's very hard to hear you asking. Are you asking for resident comments at this point?
Those are in favor of this item. You can go first, sir. If you're in favor of this item, please state your name and your address.
Sure, my name's Rick Freisinger, and I live at 1400 Shawnee Road, which, according to this drawing, the access to Shawnee Road is probably directly across from my house. When we moved here about 15, 16 years ago, there was no Free Market Drive, and Shawnee Road had, some traffic, but not near the amount. With the Free Market Drive coming in, it's like a regular drag strip down there sometimes. I fear that if you put in more traffic on that road and you say it's secondary, I don't know how secondary that'll be, but it's just going to increase the volume there. And if you don't drive Free Market and Shawnee every day, that's a dangerous accident waiting to happen, because visibility is already skewed with some of the trees, and you really have to creep up into the intersection to see what's coming down Shawnee Road. So you create more information. Yep. Yeah, that's mine right there. So it's going to be right in that area someplace. And so my concern obviously is that you're going to increase the traffic. You're going to, and frankly, I don't know that Shawnee Road's pretty narrow. I think I measured it today. It's about 24 feet wide. The access there at Free Market is roughly 36 feet wide. So you're surely getting more access there. I know I have an RV you don't see in the picture, but it's hard to get that RV into my driveway on Shawnee Road without getting into the ditch to some degree to get it in. So I'm just generally concerned. I understand the zoning prospects for this property. It is commercial, And I respect the fact that folks are willing to put up the fences and stuff, but I do think that, better access would be off of Free Market or Highway 77. And I also submitted a quick email with to Emma with those my concerns as well.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gray. Those are in favor, side. Approach the podium and give your name and address, please.
Matthias Albert, 2600 Network Boulevard, Suite 310 in Frisco, Texas. I'm here on behalf of the applicant as the engineer for the project, so appreciate the public concern there. I get that any development here will increase traffic. If it were self-storage, if it were regular, general retail, I think you'd see a larger discrepancy in the amount of traffic. This is a use that generates very little trips per day. So I don't think that the homeowner's concerns are necessarily warranted by this use, but I could see how future uses and future development of that area could blend into that. But really where we're here is obviously to present these site plans. I don't believe that the initial PD had site plans that laid out this level of detail, but now this is moving towards the point where it's ready to be developed. The intention is with the zoning approval tonight, it'll move into regular engineering and building permits and things of that nature. So really this is to document the zoning that's in place today and just formulate a plan that rides around that. We're not asking for any variances or anything like that. Everything is pretty much in line with the initial PD. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Just real quick, in terms of the access, I know Mr. Harmon here will probably back us up on this, but in terms of getting access to the highway there, the spacing doesn't provide an additional access point. The existing access points are really at the maximum spacing that don't allow another access point in between the two street intersections that are there. So really, we worked with staff. We didn't want to create an additional access point onto, what's that northern street again there?
Deer Creek.
Deer Creek, because that is a little bit more residential. We didn't want to provide access from that standpoint. So really from emergency services, our two options were Free Market Drive and Shawnee Road. So we're doing the best we can for, the site that has frontages that it does and trying to make that work. So that was a request from staff, when we first met with them a couple months ago, was not to access Deer Creek, and so that's why the plan is as it is today. With that, I'm happy to answer any other questions that the commission may have.
Thanks, sir.
What? I'm not the commission, but one could certainly, yes.
Sir, we're gonna.
I would just,
We'll get you your chance, sir. Please. Anyone else in favor of this item? Anyone against this item? Or if you have any general questions? So you can go ahead, Mr. Wright.
yeah, I would argue that Deer Creek is no more residential than Shawnee Road. My house lives right across the street, and I've traveled these roads for years. And to say one is more accessible from a residential standpoint is put one of these in across from your house and see if how residential it does or does not feel.
So, Mr. Friesinger, this is Ben Hartman, City Engineer and Director of Development. So, the Shawnee Roadway is identified by the county as a minor arterial, and Deer Creek is identified as a standard residential roadway, and that's the reasoning behind getting access from there. Now, like the developer's engineer mentioned, the trip generation or the amount of cars that come to a space like that per day is pretty low. Secondarily, that is just a second point of entry. The main point of entry is off Free Market because that's where the office is. So you're not going to see, if people are coming in to inquire about renting spaces or just the employees that work at the facility, you know, they'll all be entering through the front entrance with the front gate. It would be probably on rarer occasions where people are entering here, you know, but just so you know, every development we have, especially of this size, we typically require, or the fire department typically requires 2 points of access to a development in case of an emergency. And so that's why it is the way it is. And the developer's engineer also mentioned you know, it's far less trips than retail, but this kind of is set up for retail, these other lots, but they will have access off Free Market, and then their secondary access could be, you know, just a parking lot, you know, connection to the back here, if you can see where my cursor is. But yeah, that main, this Shawnee Road is a minor arterial, so that the county has always had this slated as a higher volume roadway.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. It's just, I'm here to express my opinion. That's all I can do.
Got it.
Okay. Someone else, please. Have a motion to close the public hearing, please. Motion to close.
I'll second it.
Public hearing has been closed. Commissioners, any thoughts? Which is this location? Or any comments?
I'll let the guys on mine speak first. It's kind of hard, I know, but I have comments, but I'll wait for them if they have any.
Thanks, Leroy. Do you have anything?
I don't have anything.
Hey, Ben, could you tell us just a few of the uses that this could be used for instead of this storage? Maybe if it was some kind of retail or something that would be higher volume traffic?
Yep, hang on. Freezing up a little here. Is that use list in there? The original one? Hang on, give us just a second. So it looks like it's basically everything within it's a big mix of C1 and C2, and even some industrial stuff. I mean, there's certainly worse uses, but again, you know, the back area, I guess, was always thought to be something like storage. It didn't specifically say, it just allowed it, you know, didn't say it had to be in the back. It just seems like a better use to have the other uses that are allowed be up along Free Market.
Sounds good. I don't have any issues with it.
Everything, I don't okay, Ben, you may be able to answer this, or the engineer. Is the primary road, reason for the secondary road entrance, is it emergency or public access? What's the primary need for that secondary road?
It's emergency access.
If it's emergency access, is there not the ability to do, as we've done in some of the other ones, and make those gated with emergency access? I say that for many reasons. First of all, I agree with anytime we have residential and commercial coming together, I always have a concern with that. One, I always have a concern with that. Maybe the only one, but I'm gonna have that. Second of all, I don't, from a safety, standpoint, not only on the traffic, but even risk of theft of property, your secondary entrance only opens up more potential for that. So if it is for emergency access, I don't have any issue with it being there, but not as a public access. That does concern me.
So it's not public, it's gated. But it's gated for the users of the site. You know, like if you have a storage unit there, you come in and either have a code or a clicker or whatever to get in there, but it's not, if you wanted to go rent a unit there, you would not pull in there. You'd go into the front because that's where the office is.
Okay. And that answered a lot of it right there.
Yeah.
That it is gated and controlled.
Right, and it's also gated back here so that in the event that someone pulls in thinking this is the main entrance, we had them provide enough concrete where they could turn around and get back out instead of backing out onto Shawnee.
You answered my question.
Okay.
And I don't have an issue with that caveat. I just want to make sure that wasn't an open roadway in and out. I think that the traffic in and out of that would be extremely limited access on.
Can I have a, motion please for item 2?
Motion to approve item 2 as written.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Item 2 has been approved. Moving along to agenda item 3. There's another, conduct a public hearing and consider a zoning change from plan development 24 revised R-5 to plan development 24 revised 24R-6 for development of an office building on the site identified as being the remainder of Lot 2, Block 1, Red Oak Plaza on the northwest corner of Plaza Drive and I-35 East Service Road, addressed as 103 Plaza, City of Red Oak, Ellis County, Texas. Case number Z as a zebra, C as a cat, 22-28, requested by Sunny Staff.
This is a request for the development of an office building in the southwest corner of a villa and I-35 Service Road. Proposed office building will be approximately 7,845 square feet and will have the potential to serve medical office and administrative office uses. Interior materials of the proposed building will be brick and stone, and the plans exceed the city's minimum land requirements. The past restaurant owners have owned the site. They intend to build a restaurant. Both office and restaurant uses are permitted by right. However, restaurant use may be the highest and best use of the property in the long run. Building is approved as is, difficult to convert it back to a restaurant just because of the size of the building not allow additional parking. After recommends approval of the site plan package if the medical use is desired. Also recommends thoughtful discussion of prospective restaurant use. Although the proposed site plan meets the minimum requirements of an office development, staff also recommends the proposed building have a flat roof instead of residential style roof as shown on the elevation above. The applicant is available and staff is available for any questions. That's the flat roof commercial style elevation. So it probably resonates more with the other commercial buildings along 35. Then the other elevation is more of a residential style with a pitched roof.
Yeah, so this is the same development, or same owner-developer across the street. They have one building that's the flat roof style and one that's the pitched roof or residential style. And so from our perspective, we think the flat roof, because it's over by itself on directly on 35 there, it would go better as a flat roof, similar to what's there and here. This at the time was thought, you know, it's transitioning into this kind of what is currently a residential area, so it's kind of a good transition between the, you know, commercial flat roof, residential pitch, and then this is kind of residential. It's trailers and stuff, but it's residential nonetheless. But that is why the applicant provided both, is to show what each would look like within the same footprint.
This is a public hearing. For those that are in favor of this item, you can go first. Those that are against this item, you can go second. And if you have any questions, those individuals that have general questions, we're here to listen to those also. So those in favor of this item, please state your name and your address.
Good evening, my name is Jeff Linder, Advanced Engineering, in Mansfield, Texas, 240 North Mitchell Road. We're here this evening with Dr. Sunny Patel, who's the owner developer.
Sunny Patel, 106 Plaza Drive, Red Oak, Texas.
And as Emma described, what we're here tonight for is basically, though it's a zoning change, it's really the site plan approval for this office form and/or medical office structure, about 75, 78 square feet. Looks like we've been able to exceed the landscape requirements, meet all the parking, signage is not going to be an issue. We're adding in some sidewalk really around the whole perimeter except for where it backs up to Bella, and along the frontage there, tying in across the street. So really we're here to discuss, well, like I said, the uses, office and medical. There's been some talk of a restaurant. At least one, if not two, I believe, different entities have looked at the property for a restaurant. We're not really able to make it work just due to the light nature of the access to the site. But it seems to lend itself very well. The site plan kind of pops in there pretty well for an office layout, and I think this makes a lot of sense. Discussion on the roof pitch, whether it was a pitched residential style or flat. At the staff's request, we have provided elevations for both. Preference is still was our first choice that we initially submitted, which was the residential style roof. Obviously, there's at least one other building in the area, so it wouldn't be alone. It certainly wouldn't stand out. It's also a little less expensive, and certainly from a maintenance standpoint, long duration, long term, a flat roof is going to be more expensive to maintain flat. You know, it slopes to the back. You've got a membrane that breaks down over time, and it's a lot easier to maintain and work on and keep up with the structure. That's the main reason for wanting to go. Any questions you got?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Ben, well, it's to both. We know that 664 is going to expand quite a bit. Have you guys been in contact with TxDOT and what they're going to take?
Yeah, that's been taken into account. The right of way's already been the right of way's already been taken here. If you can kind of see this, if you're looking at the screen there, you can follow my hand.
Got
That's
it.
that's the new property boundary. So it fits within that.
And I agree with you in regards to the flat roof, because as that highway goes up, you're going to be looking at the peaks and valleys of the back of a building based on the way that TxDOT gave the drawing that that roadway would go through there. Hello?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I mean, long as that's been taken care of, you know, so we don't have to come back and readdress that later.
Right.
Thank you, Jay. Is anyone else in favor of this item? Or if not, anyone that's against this item? Or if you have any other questions? I can have a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close it.
Yeah, there's just one more thing to add on to that. So this was a site that was about 10,000 square feet prior to TxDOT taking into some land from us. So that's all been taken into account. And also, there was a Mexican restaurant before that was planning to come here. So though it looks like it's an ideal site for a restaurant, multiple entities have tried and failed. It's not that we don't want a restaurant, but as the owner, we've looked into different entities coming and using this land, and I've talked to two of the top brokers in Ellis County, and nobody's been able to find me a restaurant that would like to come here. Otherwise, I'm happy to build them a restaurant. So just realistically speaking, I haven't been contacted by anyone for that.
Right.
I have been contacted for office and medical because as Red Oak continues to grow, there's a lot of healthcare entities that want to come into Red Oak. And I think it's going to be important for the community and other industries that come in. They don't want to go down to Waxahachie or North Dallas for all of their healthcare needs. Actually, last week, there's a 5-person physician group who contacted me for space in my current building, but we don't have it, and nobody on Ovilla does. So this process, I wish we started a while back, but now it's come up because TxDOT finally finalized their taking. They were going back and forth with us. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit more. And one more thing on the Pittsburgh flat roof. We are open, and hence why we showed the secondary drawings, but we have a little concern with the builder bringing up a good point as well. When the new overpass does eventually come, there may be some debris that's going to be consistently coming onto a flat roof that we have to take into account now. Nails and just various small pieces. So if those pieces sit on the flat roof consistently, they're going to cause damage and some leaks because of that overpass being maybe 10, 15, or how far would that be, Ben? Do we know exactly?
The right-of-way is 10 feet away. I don't know how far.
That new overpass.
Yeah, because you've got a 10-foot build line there, so I don't know how far it's actually going to be where you've got that vertical retaining wall going up. I'm not sure.
Okay, so that was just one point that was previously brought up, and probably a realistic point on our flat roof that I have currently. There was some nails just last week that pulled off because they've been sitting there from the AC maintenance person. So I suspect same issue we may have to take into account with the close by overpass, just something to consider. So we thought we would give the pitched roof and try to make it as modern as possible, if that's an option, of course.
So none of those trees on there are going to be able to be saved either, are they?
Say it again, James.
No, I was asking if any of those trees on that lot would be able to be saved. It don't look like it.
I guess you was talking about the trees.
The trees on the land.
You want the trees that's close to the overpass?
Well, I think the question was how many trees, or if there are any trees that will be able to be saved.
Yeah, there's some real big trees out here, like, if, it'll be close. It'll be close, if any. There's some right along the edge there.
Right. I always said I was going to build a Jamaican restaurant right there, leave the trees, but hey, somebody else has it.
Yeah, so these ones that are kind of far in, those won't be able to stay. These ones that are kind of close to the back of the curb, they may be able to be incorporated.
I would like to see if we,
Now it's not calling for preserving.
Right.
yeah. No, I'm just asking as, if they were able to be saved, it would be nice, but if not, that's just the way it is these days.
Yeah, the driveway is gonna go right about here, so this one would surely come out. That one might be able to be saved and incorporated into the new landscape plan. That one looks dead. That one could probably stay if the sidewalks fit between the tree and the lamp post. That's, it's kind of something we get a little more into on the construction plan side of things.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just asking. Okay, thank you.
And can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
I second it.
Public hearing has been closed. Commissioners, anything? Leroy, do you have anything?
I think the flat roof is probably the best option.
I agree. Are we okay with parking, Ben?
Yes, for an office use, they got all the parking in there they needed, and I think that's what they were kind of alluding to, is talking with other restaurateurs. They probably asked, how big of a building can I build, and then how much is left over for parking, because parking is so different for an office use versus a restaurant use. It's 1 per 200 for office.
Yeah, I think that's a great.
And 175 for restaurants, so it really kicks it up.
It is. I think it's a great purpose because we do need more as we grow. I have to go all over Dallas to go to different doctors, so I applaud this effort.
Getting in and out can be a hassle, but could be good. Traffic going all the back.
18 hours a day.
I don't know what to do with that.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the way TxDOT did their video, the traffic flow would change anyway once they start because it would come up and go over instead of going around.
Right. This will remain in place and you can still access it from here. But instead of all these folks that are coming up here to go east on Ovilla, they'll be able to come up and utilize the SPUI and bypass this whole thing right here.
Can I have a motion, please, for agenda item 3?
I motion to approve agenda item 3 as presented.
Yeah, I gave both of those, and that our decision tonight to make the decision.
Right, it'd be the recommendation, if you're making a recommendation to approve, you would say recommendation to approve site plan with flat pitch roof.
Okay.
Or residential style roof, however anyone wants to make a motion and second it and then vote on it.
I make the motion to approve the agenda with a flat roof as it is presented now.
James, I guess let's discuss it first before we.
Okay.
That way we're not stuck on the roof, flat pitch. I'll kind of give an idea. So you say you want a flat roof? You want, James?
I think based on the 2 examples that are across the street, it will look better. And with the 10-foot wall, TxDOT generally puts up a barrier between there. So, unless nails or stuff are just flying over the wall, I don't think that would be, with 10 feet, you have to really be throwing nails across the highway.
Can you clarify for me, Ben, front of the building will face that or the front of
Let me see.
the building faces south? So it faces the other medical facility.
So this is the front right here, the south elevation. For flat, and then do you want to see the pitched roof south elevation? So that's the south elevation for the pitch roof, the front of the building.
And I may be different, have a different feeling than others, but I prefer that look. To me, that's a more aesthetically pleasing look than a flat roof. Flat roof building, I understand when it's in a long chain of buildings, but when it's standing out the way it does, to me, that aesthetically looks much better. I go back down to with Waxahachie and where some of the doctor's offices are that are in that. And to me, it's just much more aesthetically pleasing than a flat roof. If it's facing the other one, it already has that type of roof. If it was facing the other direction, I would have a different opinion because you're seeing both sides of that road. That's just my opinion. I'm not going to die on that molehill for anybody. I'll promise you, but just personally, I like that look.
Right, and it does face, all three sides. It's just that they're designating that as the front, the south side, but it does face 3 right-of-ways, and technically 4, but I think with the elevation of of Ovilla, you're not really going to be able to see it. So what we should be looking at is all 3 sides that are, east, west, and south, to kind of make that a complete decision of what y'all want to see or what aesthetic y'all prefer.
I think it is the medical building across from it, so there's and then that strip center, but then you've got the newer medical building that people, so it's kind of a hodgepodge already, so I have no preference. One way that look more out of place than the other.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking the same. I like both buildings, but each would be across the street.
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 that are flat and 1 dot. So, I mean, it's just, whichever way you go.
Let me say this, if you're looking at those buildings, which one is more aesthetically pleasing to you? I'm asking, and everybody may have a different look, a different feel for that. The developer has a request.
So I see more pitch roofs. I've seen quite a few across DFW. I looked at one last weekend. It's still up there. They look nice. Finish out is good. The outside looks great. So that's a pitch roof building I'm talking about. Like the applicant said, less maintenance issues.
So my next question is, if we're going to do it this way, are we going to do it red bricks or white bricks like they have across the street? If we're talking about aesthetically being the same.
So it looks a little more similar to the building to the west in the colored elevations. It's kind of that red brick with the white stone with some other kind of reddish accents.
I guess, Jan, you're saying
Is it going to be that color or red? Because the pictures look, I mean, again, we're talking about the look of the way we want Red Oak to look. But if we got all these different type of bricks and right there together, it doesn't look like we're on the same page.
Did y'all have a preference of the color of the bricks?
Because we gave 7-Eleven a hard time and others a hard time. So let's be consistent with how we want it to look as far as which would be easier. I can go with the frame roof, that's fine. But let's try to match one or the other or closer so that it does look like it's all one part of one development.
It's not the applicant here, he's gonna explain that.
Right, so, the red brick was trying to get close to, red brick that's on the south side buildings. Both of them do have some red brick, and Mamacita's, flat roof building also has red brick. The red brick was to try to keep in the theme, and the stone that you see on the facade, is white stone, and to try to match the newer pitched roof, building that's there. So it's gonna be tough to match exactly, but we are trying to keep it in the general theme of white, beige stone, and red brick, which all of the surrounding buildings do have. The other option we contemplated was to go with a more modern gray that you see nowadays, but I think that's what would look, out of place, actually. So that's the reason why we kind of stuck with the white, gray, and red,
Yeah, so that it's complementary to all the buildings, not necessarily matchy-matchy, right?
Right, that's what I meant to be complementary. Because the drawings look very dark red from what I'm looking at.
I agree with that, James, yeah, you go ahead. More like the darker.
I think they have it drawn darker, but when you get to picking the actual bricks, when you're talking the red bricks, they're not gonna be that dark or correct.
Okay.
Any more questions? Leroy, you were saying you're either way, is that right, Leroy?
I prefer the flat, but I'll go either way on it, no matter.
All right, Commissioners, can I have a motion, please, for agenda item 3?
If you guys don't mind the chance.
Anyone, please?
If not, I'm gonna make a motion, we approve, item as presented with residential style roof.
That's fine.
All in favor?
All right.
That
Agenda item 3 has been approved. Moving along. Thank you very much. Thank you. Agenda item 4 is conduct a public hearing and consider a zoning change from plan development PD 29 to plan development 29R to amend the allowed uses on site and allow the existing and future parking as shown in PD 29 to serve as the required parking for this site on lot 2R, block B of Red Oak Business Park. Number 1, located on the south corner of South Main Street and the railroad tracks, and 205 South Main Street, City of Red Oak, Texas, Edwards County, Texas, via the zebra C22-26, requested by Stephen Simmons.
To request to amend the allowed usage and allow the existing and future parking as shown in PD 29 to serve as the required parking for the site. In order to revitalize the shopping center so that it has truly activities, the allowed uses have been amended to remove heavier commercial uses, BD uses which require excessive parking. The owners have a prospective restaurant as a tenant which has over 50 locations nationwide. There's not enough calculated parking. The owner has issued a notice to vacate for one of the churches so that parking spaces will be free. In an effort to assist the parking situation, staff has created a parking matrix that has less restrictive parking requirements for the city. The updated parking ratios are based on comparisons with adjacent cities. With the parking matrix applied, the site would need 17 less parking spaces than required. With both the revised parking matrix and the 50 additional parking spaces from the church, the site would still not be able to meet the minimum parking requirements for another restaurant. Therefore, staff recommends the parking agreement be executed with the adjacent property, which is the former Randy's Barbecue, to offset the calculated parking issue. Available for any questions in the site, the area of the site is on your screen.
So additionally, the parking that she's mentioning that's off-site, it looks like it's on-site. So if you look at the actual property boundaries, all of these parking spaces, all of these parking spaces, and all of these parking spaces are not included in the site. So technically, we cannot count them towards the parking requirements of any businesses that want to go in there. And so it looks like it was intentionally built that way. We looked through our records. We could not find any parking agreement. We've asked the owner if they had a parking agreement when they purchased it. They could not locate one. It would have been filed record at the county, is typically how those are done. We did not find anything there filed on it. And the only thing we could find was one document that had like a hand sketch note on it that said parking easement, but it was not formalized in any way, and it was not recorded in any way. So we just didn't. From all appearances, it seems like the parking was just built off the site with a handshake agreement, I guess. And so we have been looking at it for years, assuming that the parking was there, but getting an actual survey or some of the older documents that had the property lines drawn on them appropriately found that they were not on there. And so that's why Emma made the new parking table. That's why we wanted to have, if a restaurant was going to go in there, we needed to have some assurances that the church would be moving out, which the applicant did provide a notice of intent to leave or something like that. Notice of vacate. Yeah, so they'll be out, or the owner has given them notice that they need to be out by the 2nd of October, I believe. So that would free up the spaces for the church parking. I'm sorry, for the new restaurant. The problem we see is if we get another restaurant that wants to go in there, you know, we'll have to be right back here doing another parking deal, because because restaurants take up so much parking. Now, the applicant originally, if I remember right, correct me if I'm wrong, if you get up here, that when they bought the property, there was a parking count that was given to them by the previous owner, but it included a bunch of this area back here that they had spaces counted that were not constructed. And so they were of the belief they had, I'm just going to make up a number here, 200 parking spaces, but in reality they only have 120. Again, those are both made up numbers, but they're significantly underparked for the amount of spaces, lease spaces that they have available. And so we, like Emma said, we reduced down the uses that would have that really high parking requirement, as well as looked at some other cities to see, hey, what are they using for this use and that use, and it does alleviate some of that. But I think the reality is these off-site spaces that are, this technical off-site is what the real issue is. If they're going to put any more tenants in there for anything, because after the restaurant, we just chewed up a bunch of spaces, and so we got to have this off-site parking agreement with the owner, because the owner of Randy's Barbecue here has theirs up for sale. And if they don't get that parking agreement, the next guy might not have any interest in doing a parking agreement with them. And so that's scary for us as the city, to see like a, off-site parking, and then we're having to tell tenants and applicants and owners like, oh, well, you can't use those spaces, or you can't count those spaces. Even if they get used on a practical basis, we can't count them from a technical basis.
Is there any reason it couldn't go 2 stories to maybe develop something like the atrium that's downtown? Or even 2 stories?
They could, but then they would have to have even more spaces.
Okay.
And so, unless you're talking about getting rid of buildings and adding spaces and then putting residential above it, which would require less, that's the only way that would, and I don't even, from a monetary standpoint, would not come out in the wash.
Right.
So,
This is a public hearing, and those are in favor of this item, please go first, or if you're against this item, please go second. So those that are in favor of this item, please state your name and your address, please.
Stephen Zimmerman, 5307 Oak Lake Drive, Dallas, Texas. So, it's a tricky property. We got this a while back. And the parking spaces, and then I think there were like 260 is what the city had on file. So, we thought no problem. And it's a ghost town anyway. There's never anybody in that center. All the tenants in there are drop-offs or virtual. There's no restaurants. And the way that we thought, and then when y'all corrected the parking, you counted those parkings that the owners of Randy's Barbecue own. They can't even get to that parking because they have to cross my parking lot. There has to be something out there, and common sense would say it. I've even repaired the concrete that evidently did not belong to us because it was common sense. It belonged to us because it's built with us. It's the same place, everything's the same. They can't even enter into our parking lot to park without an agreed easement. I'm sure there's an easement, but where is it? And I'm sure I can get one, but I don't know that this owner's gonna sign something when he has his building up for sale. I even take care of the landscape. I thought that was mine. And I believe my parking lot, if you look, my poles are on that property, and they match the poles on the Main Street part. But with that being said, this center is half empty, and the only way this center can survive is if the parking gets released. We won't cannibalize the center. I have several centers that have, parking issues here and there. We purposely don't sign certain tenants because it hurts the center. With the change of uses, I cannot sign a church. The church that we had, they're leaving. 30 days, I think it's the second, and they're gone. The church that's there is only open on Sunday, and everyone's closed. If you're familiar with this center, you can park 1,000 times over and over. There's never a car in the parking lot. But I've got good tenants that want to go in here. And I get plenty of leasing calls, but I can't do anything because the parking was taken up when one of these churches expanded over. Because I thought I had the city had me down to like 264, and jumping down to 120 is a big difference. So my due diligence was looking at the city, and the city had it incorrect because the prior owners that owned this before this was taken back from them, never developed that plot of land over there, and somehow it slipped everyone, and everyone had the parking incorrect. So there's a lot of moving parts on this, but the parking that I know cannot technically be counted. They can't even park there. They can't park there because they're not allowed they don't have an easement. There's not a known easement that allows anybody that wants Randy's Barbecue to come onto this one. So for me to get an easement, a parking agreement should be relatively easy, because they can't use their own parking because they can't cross my parking lot. So a shared easement, I don't see being a problem. I have a call into the broker, but he just hasn't called me back yet to get this signed. So what I'm asking here is to release, with the change of use, dropping, we can't do churches, we can't do certain businesses that would eat up the parking, but the center needs some life. And Crab Kings is the restaurant we want to bring in. They have over 50 locations. We'll give this center a chance and give it life. Right now, honestly, if it doesn't get passed, I don't know there's nothing we can do. So I guess we're at the mercy of the city. And, common sense, why would we cannibalize our parking and sign any more people knowing that we have a parking issue? We're going to sign the correct tenants. I have other centers, and we will not sign certain tenants. even though it's zoned for them, because they kill our parking. So that's why they hired me to bring me in on this one, to do the same thing, and then I saw 260, I thought free and clear, and then it dropped to like 158, and then when I sent you that parking, I was like, oh my God, we don't own this parking. Which I don't even know if that's, I just don't understand how that can even be correct. It was built, the only thing I can think of is this was built together at some point, and when they replatted it off, they gave that parking to Randy's Barbecue for whatever reason. And they lied about the parking, prior owners. So I'm asking for the change of use is, to me, a no-brainer. But to release my parking so I can lease this up, not tenant by tenant. Because I know that's out there too. If we go tenant by tenant, where every tenant gets approved, we'll lose them. Time will kill every deal. I will not be able to do it and say, okay, that's fine, we got to meet in a month with the city and meet again. They will move on. And so I'm just trying to get the city to cooperate with me and me cooperate with them. And we're willing to do what they need, but I can't create more parking. Y'all passed it last time, and city council overturned it because the uses allowed more churches, and they were scared if I wanted to, I can just fill the whole place up with churches. Well, we're correcting that. So I'll see why when it passed, Randy's Barbecue parking got taken away, but it doesn't. Theoretically, it will not come into effect.
Yeah, so I think it says right here, I found the document that says 20-foot parking easement. But it's not on a plat and it's not like recorded anywhere. So I guess, I assume y'all have title on it, title chain and all that. Was there nothing in the title documents that showed anything like that?
We did not get a lot on this property. This property was, taxed.
Okay.
So the only thing, it was taken back to the people.
Right.
So I just depended on like the stuff that you sent me and the stuff I could just dig up. Other than that, I don't have anything.
Well, then, do you know if that other broker has prepared title yet?
I don't, that's not even under contract.
Okay.
We were actually gonna put an offer in to buy it. But we were holding off because we're not gonna keep on going if we can't even fill this center. Because we're still under even with that parking, right?
Eventually,
Yeah, if I start filling it up, we're still under. So I know it's hard to say, trust me, I do this all the time, we're not gonna have a parking issue here. Sylvan Learning's online, the dance studios drop off, the daycares drop off. There's no parking issue. And the church that took up 90 spaces, they only are open on Sunday. And everyone's closed.
And I think it's a perfectly logical explanation of what's happening there today, but I think our concern is,
I get it.
what if Crab Kings comes? And what if everybody thinks that's the cool new place to have a restaurant, and you start leasing up to all these restaurants, and all of a sudden it's overflowing with parking, and there's not enough
We only have 2
parking in
spaces for restaurants. That's not to say someone can't come in and put a grease trap and
Right.
into hood and that kind of stuff, but the way the center's laid out, I don't think it can handle more than 2. It can handle the Subway, or, we've got that pizza place that is all delivery.
Right.
But have you ever been to a shopping center where you just can't find a parking spot? It's a healthy shopping center. It's not the worst thing in the world.
Right.
It just isn't. I live in North Dallas, you've got to get there an hour early to get a spot. And they're 100% full, and they're paying their taxes, and the city benefits off of it. This center is awful right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ghost town. And my hands are tied. I can't do anything. So that's my argument.
Okay.
Do y'all have any questions?
We talk about it.
Sorry?
We're at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
go through the, protocol.
Okay. That's it?
Yes, okay. Don't leave.
I can't hear anything.
Oh,
I vote yes.
Anyone else, for this item? Or if anyone is against this item?
Motion closed.
Motion closed.
Second.
hearing has closed. All right, commissioners,
So if you looked at even just buying this parking section, buying that part?
No, we were looking to buy the whole thing. The restaurant, we put in a verbal offer, and we weren't in the ballpark. But we could go up, but we're not gonna do that. We have to see what happens here first. That's not under contract.
What is your plans as far as the second part of the development? Is there any way that the center could be added onto and there be additional parking along water?
If we have to lay cement and lay parking, we will. It's expensive. We don't have any plans to develop that land in any time in the near future, but it's my understanding we can't lay that parking down because it's zoned for it's zoned for retail. Isn't that right?
Right, but
So
you
if we
can,
have to build retail to lay parking, which just cannibalize our parking even more. So right now, it's just gonna stay land. And I don't see, honestly, ever needing to find, it's completely blocked from everything. It's not a good, I don't think the money would outweigh the development.
But you could install the parking without the buildings, right? Because all the utilities are already all in, and sorry, I'm trying to pull up the original, but the original plan had more buildings and more parking up in this triangle.
Correct.
But you could technically go in and lay the parking out just like it is and not install the buildings yet and have that extra additional parking. And then if you, potentially if the center became super successful and it was still, had plenty of parking just based on the uses and the overturning of tenants and things like that, you could possibly start going in and building buildings without additional parking if the uses maybe were low parked or something like that. Now, obviously, that would take quite a bit of time and effort.
the city could just do parking.
The parking as it is laid out, is not, I cannot get it to pull up for some reason.
I was under the impression this is because of the way that plot of land is zoned, I could not do a parking lot, but that was the first thing I said.
It was, you couldn't just pave over the whole thing, right? So there's already a site plan that shows buildings and parking, and you could, and that's already approved, so you could go put in the parking without putting in the buildings, in that same configuration so that the buildings could be built later, or you could request a zoning change to have that all be changed to parking.
That's what I was thinking.
We could do that as a last resort, but that'll cost, I think we have sufficient parking. Even if I lease the place up. Now, if we said we didn't, we definitely have to go lay parking down, but y'all's fear is if it's not in writing, I don't have to do it.
Right.
I get it. And it's not a handshake kind of deal, so.
Well, we don't want that, because that's how we ended up here in the first place.
I'm here with this Randy barbecue. Do you know how much it is to lay, that'd have to be 6 to 8 inches of cement and lay the parking and the rebar and everything?
Yeah, I mean, parking's 5 inches and fire lanes are 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Rather not do it?
So, let me ask a question, Ben. So our major concern is that there is not enough parking, or that it doesn't fit our code right now.
Right, so the way it was originally done, it does not, the uses that would, take up all, when we go to do the parking calculations, right? The certain uses take up way more than others, like the church that's in there right now, but they're leaving, great. The restaurant takes up a ton. And so what we ultimately, the way we would do the parking calculations right now is that it would basically all be used up, I guess, when the restaurant comes in based on the square footage of the new restaurant, or would you have couple, do we have some?
Restaurant's not big, it's only 27.
Well, that was gonna be my question,
it
is what
would
the capacity was, because I've been in that building many times, but
They
it
were
was a
right now,
very
taking you
limited
over
restaurant.
because, yeah.
It's small.
Right. So which building are they looking at for them? That front facing building?
Yeah, this one right here, that's right behind Randy's, I think it's this
Some
suite.
of the country cafe kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
Can I ask you something?
it was great, yes.
So you said.
Is that the one where the Miami Nice is?
And we never had, there was never a parking issue. That was my point.
That was, okay, that was my question.
That was my point. Was it old? Absolutely, and it was great. It was absolutely great when it was. But that was my question, is if we're worried about, we believe the problem is, or if we're worried about sticking with the code. And
Right.
I don't
Well,
want to believe go around the code, but I can tell you from personal experience, when both of those restaurants were there and both of those were booming, that was not an issue.
Right.
I got in there every day.
Right, so that brings us around to that technical issue that the parking isn't on site.
Right.
And so that, you know, because the problem is right now is that Randy's, or whoever buys Randy's, they can go in there and cut all that out. We couldn't say a dang thing about it, right? And neither could you, unless you have something in writing, right?
Can you do this on a contingency that I get something in writing? So we don't have to go back another month and I can get it by the city council? Or you can revoke it? Because I'm gonna lose these tenants.
Okay,
I've already lost like, two.
okay. Well, I think we could do something conditional, like, if, you know, assuming the church is out and the.
There's two churches.
Well, just the one.
The one's out there.
Yeah, the one you gave notice to, actually.
They have to get out, right? I'm not gonna.
Right. Yeah, assuming they get out on that time frame and you get the parking agreement from them, I think that's a reasonable, condition to have on the zoning, and we would take that forward to city council and they would kind of memorialize
That
that.
easement thing you showed me,
Mhm.
can you send that to me?
Yeah, it's on the zoning that, I think, you've sent them the zoning before, haven't you? It's
Okay.
in that packet, you just gotta zoom in real close and it's a little blurry.
There's two hands shaking next to it?
It very much could have been with
I'm telling you.
the previous owner.
Look how this was built, it doesn't make any sense.
And I was gonna go back to that point as well. Honestly, I do not recall, and I'm gonna slap myself because I was on council at that time when that building was built.
I know the person that owned that restaurant. His brother lives two streets down from me.
I don't believe that access was there originally.
Yeah, no, there was something that happened and it was meant to be there and meant to be used. We just need some kind of formal documentation of it, because now we're telling you have access to somebody else's property that we don't have proof of.
Right.
And that's our issue.
That was Randy's.
Yeah,
I believe that was on Randy's side of it anyway, and that was done when the roadway was changed at that intersection and cut off.
yeah.
Because they cut off the entrance to 342 for safety reasons,
Mhm.
and that's when that was opened up. If my memory's right, which it may not be. But that's what I'm saying, I don't know that was their original owners, it may be Randy's side.
Ben, how did you get,
I'm sorry.
how did you get off on the parking spot? I mean, you know, arranged.
So we gave the owner the original document that said total 239 spaces or whatever.
I think it was like 260.
Well, this, hang on, sorry, let me not be a liar.
What happened? I mean, that's 260, let's shut that down.
I think you might be
I did what I thought it was.
off. Okay, so here, this is the official zoning document that's, you know, memorialized in an ordinance, and it's got 239 spaces listed on the site. However, the issue was, it says 239, but as you recall, that's counting every space on the full development spectrum. So it counts the off-site spaces, and it also counts the spaces that have not been constructed. So stopping like right, I guess here maybe, none of this has been constructed, so that is all the parking spaces that are also being counted that have not even been constructed yet. So that is that full 239. So then when Emma sends them back like, oh, well, I actually just did an actual parking count via Google Maps, and you only have 120, whatever it was, 139.
But even with it, it was never an issue.
So you have this, you talked about the new parking matrix. So even with the new parking matrix, they aren't, there's not sufficient parking.
There was a reduction in the need for 17 spaces based on the new uses and the new parking matrix, right? Brought it down to basically not needing 17 spaces. But that's kind of site-wide, right?
Okay. It still doesn't meet that criteria. And even if you count these all-site ones, that makes it meet that criteria.
Yeah, so it's a challenge, certainly from a technical standpoint, and it's, you know, he keeps saying, you know, I'm not gonna cannibalize my site, but he's not the owner, he's simply the lessor, and so he's, I mean, your job is to get lessees in there, right?
I'm the property manager, yeah.
And so, I guess our concern is, you know, he might be great at it, but then what about the next guy or the next owner? And we are entitling the land for eternity. And so that's the only kind of heartburn this, from the staff perspective we have from it, is that he probably does a great job at not cannibalizing the site, but after a couple years, if say they hire somebody else, they may not care. You know, they just go, who's gonna pay? You know, get them in here, and then we might have a problem. But
So really the only solution is to get off-site, well, it still doesn't meet the needs.
it doesn't. I mean, the solution really is what he said he doesn't want to do, which is have. Well, I mean, there's multiple, right? I mean, even if he did that, we still wouldn't have enough, unless we just never build the buildings. But the solution would, in reality, be, hey, I've got such and such restaurant or such and such whoever comes in here, and can we get the parking up for this suite? Can we get it to 1 to 300 instead of 1 to 150? And then that would allow them to only have 3 spaces instead of 7, or whatever it is, you know, and doing that on a case-by-case basis. But, you know, as he says, he's gonna, as soon as someone hears that, they're gonna go, see ya, I'm gonna go down the road. And so that's.
It's gonna take time to bring that.
Yeah.
Right.
Through this whole process.
Right.
Yeah. The center's gonna go into bankruptcy. They're gonna, I don't know what, if this does not get passed, here's that. This is not gonna work. I can't go on a case-to-case basis. I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with it. I agree with it. But what's the worst thing that can happen? We build a center and there's no parking. It's not the worst thing in the world. Every center in North Dallas has parking. You know? You're handcuffing me, I can't sign churches. And I'm fine with it. I don't sign churches anyway because of this issue. But the city has to take some responsibility. They'll have me down for 240 parking spots.
We have an ordinance that said there was 239.
I know, but no check on it until Emma went and counted them.
But you're the property manager. I mean, I'm not gonna get in a big argument about it.
I get it. I'm
But-
saying, work with me, just help me do something here. I'm the property manager. We didn't buy this building.
Yeah.
So I leased off what the city had, and when I do my due diligence, that's the only place I check. The way the center's laid out, it's laid out like a destination center. It is not a destination center. And so it's hard to count these parking spots. You have to walk through all the buildings.
Right.
And it's not like, mostly I can just look at the center and say, that has a parking issue. You know, like in Roanoke, TxDOT came and took everyone's front parking. Everyone on, I forget that highway, has a parking issue now. By visual, I don't see it, I never saw a parking issue here. So, and when I saw 239, I thought, no problem, I'll lease this up, get this thing going, and everyone's happy. But it's either let it stay vacant or roll the dice and approve this. With the contingency that I get Randy, I'll get Randy to sign it. If I have to buy it from him, I'll get him to sign it.
And the red line, say, is where the parking is from Randy.
In the list or on the site?
On that drawing.
Yeah. So if you look right there, you can see that red line.
Right.
Yep, so that's all parking on Randy's here, here, and here.
And that's definitely strange, because that was not built by Randy, that was.
Sure,
That
yeah.
was built in the original.
No. And so, I mean, essentially what it comes down to is, you know, there's two different schools of thought. You know, there's a school of thought where it says if you don't have a parking problem, then you have a bigger problem, as in the center sucks, right? And then there's the other school of thought that says, well, if you don't have any parking, people aren't going to come because they're going to drive in there and then just drive away. And so it's going to come to your opinion of how you utilize centers. Are you a person that goes to a center and says, I still want to come here, I'll park, you know, wherever and try to walk there? Or are you a person that goes to a center and goes, yeah, or are you a person that goes to a center and goes, I'm not shopping there, it's too busy? You know, so I think that's really the crux of the issue. Now, the zoning ordinance is set up so that there's an insane amount of parking, so that there will never be a shortage of parking. And even, I mean, I don't know if you work with big retailers, but, you know, some of the big retailers we've talked to about some of the sites in Red Oak, we're like, hey, yeah, your parking's 400 spaces. And they're like, no, we're going to have 550 spaces. And we're like, why? Why would you do that? And they're like, we don't ever want the parking lot to look full, because human nature is like, I'm not going there because it's too busy. So yeah, that's why if you drive by a lot of these cities and you see a Target and a Walmart, and even on Black Friday, they are not full. So it's...
Big box retailers have a totally different.
I get it, I'm talking about the mindset,
Yeah,
right? I'm talking about the mindset.
You're correct.
Yeah.
To say you're not is ridiculous, I get it. It's just, this is where we're at.
Those parking spots, though, considered Randy, gives us, if those were his, let's just, for a moment.
It doesn't technically give us enough, even with the reduced parking matrix. Now, I can't remember, if we added all these parking spaces without building the buildings back here, would that be enough? Then that would be 239.
But then with the additional buildings and then.
Right, you'd have to not build the additional buildings, but build the parking, right?
No, that has to be calculated. Everything was just based on this.
Oh, based from here down,
Right.
okay.
How many are we short with that, if that section there was in? How many are we short if the Randy, what I'm gonna call the Randy section there?
Okay, how many are we short if these are not included, or if they're in his agreement?
In his agreement.
In his
Without the
agreement.
church?
Yeah, without the church, assuming the church is leaving because he's got the 30-day notice.
And no Crab Kings?
No, with the Crab Kings.
About,
That space is short.
yes, 10 spaces short.
If I submit that whole and finish the parking,
So if
No,
you were
if
to
you don't
get
do
rid of
extra
the,
parking and just get the agreement with
Kings.
Randy's.
and then get rid of the church.
get rid of the church, take Crab Kings and get a Randy's agreement.
No,
Barbecue.
this is not even including the Randy's agreement.
So the rating agreement, then it would always be 10 spaces.
Yeah, without the Randy's agreement, church is gone, Crab Kings is in, he's only 10 spaces short.
With the agreement though, then he's got enough parking.
Right.
But then it'll all come, right, it'll come all back up again when we
Every time
sign.
I send it, take away parking.
Right.
The center was operating for like 15 years, just like this, never an issue. I just don't, I mean, there's some rules I get, and I have a lot of centers, and this one does not fall into it. This one, all day long, will be just fine.
If he just does the parking on the backside, how much parking is that back there? If he just does the parking.
Up here, you
Add
mean?
parking,
Huh?
add parking, do
Yeah, add
the
parking.
second phase?
On the second phase.
Up here, without building the buildings?
Yeah.
Let me go to the top.
Okay, I got it right here.
In between where it's cut down to the road.
So both phases will total 222 spaces. So if he was to build, I would give him 83 more spaces.
That'd be 80.
How many more?
83,
83 more?
yes.
If he finds, he build that back parking space. Without the agreement. So he'd be
over,
over.
yeah, much over.
Probably easily $500,000. If not, I mean, tomorrow will be $500,000 plus a little bit from the day. I mean, it's just saying.
What's your occupancy right now?
What I guess you would have,
Your occupancy
we only have like,
About 50%.
less than half.
for my square footage wise, it's, but. Do you know the occupancy?
It was less than 50.
It was less than like 40, it was not a lot, I mean, I can count them real quick in my head.
So you'd be 43% now.
Mhm.
Finish the parking. Go to what, say, like, what, 85, 90?
Yeah, typically 10% negative. Plus, I mean, don't forget that church took up 90 spots. You never see a car in front of it except on Sunday. I only expanded, I thought I had 230 something.
So that's 43%. Occupied, that's what the church owns.
There are two churches, one's in a lease, one's not in a lease.
So the one that's not in the lease.
I already gave them that.
That'll be at 43.
Well, this I would be less than $10.
Okay, so that'd be less than that. So if you do that park in the back, say about,
Yeah, I mean, I think out loud. I mean,
would it be worth putting that parking space back there after you get it stabilized? I just love it.
if it's stabilized, there's, we just, on the shopping center. And if there's a parking issue here one day, it'll hurt the owners. If we have a parking issue, that means businesses, they have a normal amount of cars there. So we would have to expand that to keep our revenue the same. 99% of owners will not necessarily. It's needed. Right now, it's not needed.
I mean, right, I mean,
Technically, it's an issue. Technically, it's an issue.
And I guess that's one of your options to do the parking.
I don't have the problem. Will y'all let me gravel it?
No, it's gotta be concrete.
Right.
But you put the parking back there.
Yeah, but I can't wait 6 months to be free to try on this everyone.
I mean, there's options for development agreements, and things like that, but,
I was gonna ask that,
yeah,
I mean,
they have to be approved by the city council.
correct.
Which isn't on the docket for Monday, so it'll be another month.
We do not have to, we don't have to have a public hearing on the agreement. I mean, technically, it could get done in this time as long as it's, done by Friday, I think.
Us to lay cement.
It would have to be, I mean, a development agreement. I was saying, like, you were saying, I don't wanna wait 6 months to get my
Right,
tenants
yeah.
approved. I'm saying that you could do an agreement with them that says if I do the parking within 4 months, I can go ahead and sign these guys on temp COs or something, and if I don't get it done by X and X date, their COs are gonna be revoked or something like that. That could be done.
I'm just running out of time.
Going forward, it's not part of the issue.
Right,
They still,
right.
But if you release the parking, it won't be an issue.
Yeah, I think, again, the release of the parking is not what is not the intent of the zoning ordinance.
I understand.
And so we can't, as staff, can't make, you know, we are subjugated to following the zoning ordinance and, you know, bringing forth the intent of the council when it was passed, which means tons of parking. So we need elected bodies to tell us that that's not our process, and that's not our leanings anymore. Our leanings are more towards, you know, more favorable parking for the owners.
I'll pass it last time.
So
City council passed, P&Z passed.
that's fine, and then I'm just telling you from staff perspective why we keep saying these things is to try and help them understand.
Just tell me what I can do to sign this tenant tomorrow.
So what is the staff's suggestion for solution? Where they don't have enough parking and they can't get, what is y'all's?
The staff's feeling would be that what he doesn't want is to allow, you know, have the parking have the parking agreement, and then sign Crab Kings tomorrow with the parking agreement, and then, but going forward, they would have to come back for council approval on reductions in parking for new tenants.
Every tenant assigned, right?
Well, every tenant that would be over that would take the parking over it. I mean, if you had somebody move out, someone could move in with no issue.
Well, right now, I'm upside down, all right, Emma?
Said what?
Am I upside down on my parking?
What do you mean upside down?
I'm sufficient for even who I have.
Yeah, right now, yeah, you're not.
Right.
They,
But if the church moves out,
Right.
Crab Kings moves in,
Yeah.
I think you have 7 spaces to play with, which if
Is
anything,
that,
right?
yeah, I get it.
Go ahead, Spoonie.
is that Miami Nice restaurant there? Is it still open?
No, right, Miami Nights is not there anymore? Right, they're closed.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the Crab Kings is gonna go.
Okay.
Well, most of these requirements are the same, most of them is one parking. Rather than making them bring back every use, able to follow one of these uses, then have this new space.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the matrix does, and it gives a little more leeway than our current ordinance.
Right.
But, like what I said, you've only got 7 spaces to play with, that's like 1 suite, only he can fill up with a low park use.
So really, if you're doing any good for us to approve case by case, because the next case you're
Correct.
full. then we'll-
Right, but I think at that level of control is previously been desired. So if that's no longer the desire, then I mean, if the commission and council.
Well, I guess I'm just saying, with the third store, and now we've got spaces, what do we do then?
We'd do the same thing. It'd be tenant C, has this business and they would like to share parking or have their parking counted as shared or something like that. And so then, I guess it would probably be done, we'd have to figure out how it's done, because then when they leave, you know, you'd have to come back and do it again. But if, you know, again, if that level of control is no longer, warranted or asked for by the elected bodies, then from a staff perspective, we do what the elected bodies want us to do, right? So,
So the only way to get around them not having to come check this, each time check this.
Is there something in that front restaurant area that is closed several times?
there was a restaurant there and then it closed, yeah, the one with the eagle and the fountain in front.
Correct.
Yeah, but it's empty now, sorry, go ahead.
So the only way to get around them having to get each one approved is for them, they had more parking spaces, they had a lot of parking spaces, they would have to.
No, so, and that's essentially what he is wanting to do, is just say, there's no parking requirements.
I mean, if they had.
The
if they
site
had all the
is
spaces
the
that we
site.
might want, if they had, 250 spaces, then they wouldn't have to come to us necessarily.
If they built out the rest of that parking and didn't put any buildings back there,
Correct. Okay, so really the only way to keep having to come back every time at this point.
right,
So
and,
then-
but
It's gonna be over parking, so you don't have to build all the parking spaces back.
Well,
it depends on the uses. So if he gets 4 restaurants, which would be kind of cool in there, but they're 1 per 75, and
Yeah.
it's pretty tight.
Okay.
Go ahead, James.
hey, so if he built out those other spaces over there without the buildings, would he then be able to open up that front restaurant and the King Crab?
Potentially, I mean, it just depends on the square footages. Do you know what the square footage of the front?
4,600, and I haven't seen it at one cent.
Yeah, so with the new matrix, I think, Emma said she bumped it up to 1 per 100 instead of 1 per 75. So that would be 46 spaces required by that front building, and the additional parking, if he built it out, would be 89 additional spaces, so,
Right. Because
I guess you could piecemeal it, and every time somebody came in, you just add on 10 spaces, that would be, I think there'd be
I just think that if King Crab does come in there, it's gonna bring the traffic, and then we're gonna be right back here with the next restaurant that wanna go back up there. So if they were interested in buying Randy's, I would think it would be cheaper for them to add on those parkings in the property they already own.
yeah, it doesn't get a lot of spaces,
The Randy's wasn't a place for parking necessarily. The Randy's was a place I personally have relationships with a lot of different, quick service restaurants. And I could put one in there pretty easily. That was more of an economic play, not a parking lot, because when we were even looking at that time, we thought we owned those parking spots anyway.
Right. I mean, obviously, if you could put someone in there, you could expand it.
yeah.
It's not enough for $1 million. That's what he wants for that.
What's $1 million?
$1 million.
How much?
$1 million.
Finish after that. Out there at maybe $500,000, maybe, I don't know how big that spot is.
And that's only good to
Maybe the size. That's it. My experience. I have,
I go back to being floored on the fact that that's in Randy's parking.
yeah, I
There
know.
was never a soul that walked across there to go to Randy's.
I repaired the cement there, I'm cutting their yard.
They didn't put that in, that was built.
Is the light poles on my property? And then look at the light poles over there, if you go to the Randy's, I believe it's the exact same light pole on the back end of it, it's technically their property.
Because before that was Randy's, it was a game room and parking. Parking didn't exist.
See that light pole right there? That's theirs. But look what it looks like, and then look at mine. They're the same light poles. There's something being missed.
No, I agree with you, but that was not built by Randy. I can call Randy right now, ask him if he dealt with that, but that wasn't built by Randy, that was built with.
Yeah, no, I know.
I replaced all their light poles.
I think you replaced it. Your own line.
Changed everything to LED, I thought that was fine.
The only action tonight is actually to allowing the parking for cracking.
So the two requests are to amend the uses, because right now the uses, they allow industrial uses, they allow churches, so it was really stripped down so you could have truly retail uses. That's the first request, and the second request is the applicant is to allow the parking as is.
You parking.
It's not gonna be an issue over here. I lost magnesium, I'm losing fruitful design. People are leaving, this is a dead center, and they were promised by the prior owners a high foot traffic. Now, why they thought that was true when they could see there was no tenants, I don't know. But, the donut shop's hurting, there's no foot traffic, and every day, I got tenants, owing rent, and I don't blame them. I mean, it looks like a vacant center. And the reason why I'm saying as is because, yeah, technically I could fill it and I can't do anything about it. Let me have it as it is. But, and if I quit, someone else comes by and just wants the commissions, they can do that. But it'll hurt the center. It will not benefit. It will eventually, nature will resort back to the vacancies because, and then the new owners would have to sign the correct tenants. And my centers that we own, we sign the correct tenants on every one of them. We own all over. This one, it just, there's in the back, there's not gonna have any traffic. Daycare, it's big spaces, it'll be a dance studio. It's not even really set up for something, no restaurants would go back there. The only life on the center is that front building and that big restaurant, and then everything else in the back, to me, is pretty, hard leased stuff. Not a destination center, but whoever built this thought it was. There's still shelf space in here. 15 years later, there's shelf space.
Well, they had big visions of the whole old downtown area as being a center. I know what the thought was when it happened. It hasn't come to fruition. All of those downtown buildings are not what they wanted it to be. They wanted it to be a Cedar Hill old town.
Yeah.
I know where that came from.
There's, shelf spaces, it's never even seen a tent.
It's never been. And I agree with that, and I'm just truly floored about that parking even being Randy's. Picked up the phone and called Randy would tell you, that's not my parking. I didn't.
Well, and the hope is that he's like, oh yeah, I've got the agreement, it's right here.
But that's been turned over to someone else.
Yeah, oh, the original guy, yeah.
That guy would tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't get into that. I know
My thing is-
personally.
I need something that lets me sign this tenant, and lets me sign another tenant, and if it's contingent on laying down cement, then I'll have to take it to ownership. I mean, they aren't gonna have much of a choice. I just think it's an unnecessary spend of money.
Okay, well, I think if that is your goal right this second, the contingency would be to, that we're gonna change the, use list. We're going to utilize the new parking matrix. And then the contingency is that we wouldn't give a CO to Crab Kings until we have proof that the church is gone, and not just the letter. That's a great, thing for everyone to feel comfortable about.
Yeah.
And get the parking agreement, because that gets, so the two contingencies would be parking agreement and the church out, and then the two new entitlements would be the two new entitlements would be the new list of uses and the new, parking matrix that reduces some of the requirements of the parking, but not throw it all out. And so, that would allow you to sign Crab Kings, and then if there's something you want to talk about with the owners about, can we do the rest of the parking, or, can we get a hold of the barbecue place, and maybe that helps us in some way, economically to, do that, and then also do something in the back, or, I don't know, come up with a new plan for the center, that makes it less difficult for you to rent it and be profitable on it. I don't know if that involves tearing out buildings. I don't know if that involves, making some mixed use and taking out some of the other buildings, or just doing the parking, or redoing where it's all just parking back there and not just installing the parking like around, future buildings. I don't know what that looks like. I think that's a big powwow between you, us, and maybe your owner of how to make it successful. But those four things I mentioned, I think that's the Crab Kings route. That's the path to get Crab Kings tomorrow, or after the council meeting.
After council.
Yeah.
So, but I still have to come to y'all
But because your parking wouldn't be there. So you'd have your Randy's agreement, and that gets you the extra, I'm just making up numbers here, like the extra 7 to play with. So you can maybe sign one very low-use tenant that is like 1 per 300 spaces or something. And then if the Mathnasium moves out, you can put someone with equivalent in there, right? Because you still have the parking from the Mathnasium, right? It's just the new guys. If anybody new you want to sign, new restaurant, new whatever, that exceed that small amount you can have to work with, then yeah, you'd have to come back and ask for a parking reduction from them, or for them.
Or work out putting in more parking,
Right.
or what?
or build more parking.
Well, coming here every month won't work. Like that, it's just not gonna work. I won't have the other tenants to stay with us, and they'll get, that's not common practice. I get it, is I don't have the parking. So I will be forced to build out the parking to where it's enough to suffice the center. That would be my only permanent. Like, I live an hour away. Like, I don't want to drive there. No.
You don't want to drive to our city? That's insulting that you don't want to drive to our city.
Twice a month if you come to council.
I know, I'm inside the Walmart.
Inside the Walmart, you go.
We stop through, eat a fried, come on.
So what do we do today?
The motion would be, and this is, in order to achieve your goal of getting Crab Kings, was to approve the list of uses, approve the parking matrix, and approve the rest of, and approve contingent based on the church actually leaving, the CO for Crab Kings being contingent on the church leaving, and the parking agreement being obtained by, or from Randy's Barbecue.
And then for future tenants?
For future tenants, if it's outside of that small window you have to play with, they would have to come back.
Right?
I think y'all need to get to work with them on the additional parking. I don't think it's gonna go past council, I'm gonna be real honest with you if you don't. So, I think that's gonna be your only other.
So I have to come back here again for the additional parking?
Well, I think y'all need to work that out and then.
Well, yeah, so because it just depends on how you want to do the additional parking. If you want to just do it as it's laid out in the original documents around these buildings that are supposed to be there, then you can just go do that with obviously with a permit. But it doesn't require council action. Now, if council is unwilling to grant what we just talked about, those 4 things, without an agreement from you to go ahead and do the parking within a certain time frame, then yeah, we'd have to come back.
Ben, I have a quick question.
Yes.
If we were to approve this now, and that, I'm just saying, if Crab King is that important to them, is he willing to do this agreement with there being no additional leases signed? Would that help get the Crab Kings in there, but he would not be able to get anything else unless they address the parking issue?
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the, what the 4 items I listed out would essentially do. That's essentially what would happen.
And the only reason,
go ahead.
And the only reason I say that, because I've heard him say twice that they could lease it out and we just have to deal with it. That is not the attitude that I want. I would love to see Crab King come here. We want to work with them. But if this tenant will help them build that shopping center, we could approve it with there not being any more tenants allowed to go in there until the rest of the parking issue is resolved.
Right, and again, the 4 items I listed would do that. What he was referring to earlier was eliminating parking requirements, period, and then, yes, he could sign whoever tenant he wanted, and that's what we're not doing.
No,
Or,
I don't
I
agree
guess
with
that's
that.
not the direction we were moving.
No, no.
Right.
Okay.
This list of uses, P20R, that applies to more places in the city than just,
No, just this piece of property.
then why would we say hospital and theater would be?
Like
It
a clinic.
is already
or
in there.
something like that. Like a clinic, or if there's some sort of small theater, performing arts suite.
Yeah, it doesn't mean like B&B. It doesn't mean
Right.
gigantic movie theater.
Okay, but he could reconfigure that whole back part for his parking. He don't have to do it.
Yeah,
right
that,
now.
yeah, that would be the zoning change that says, here's my new parking layout. It's all parking, no buildings. Because right now, the current zoning has it as 2 buildings or 3 buildings with parking around it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd want to rezone it, you make it all parking, we're
Right.
not gonna develop that. That's the point. It's not leased for land.
As of right now, you do 83, you reconfigure,
But that would take.
just all park, I'm just saying.
Yeah, if it was all it's a tough, parking likes to fit into squares or rectangles, and that's a triangle. It won't be easy, you won't get as much efficiency, but, I mean, if you got probably 30% more if you took out the buildings?
Because as a piece,
Yeah.
you all allow like scooters.
But but what he's asking is,
I know.
if we took out all the buildings, how many parking spaces could you fit in? You could probably get an extra just for,
25 or 30%.
yeah, 25 to 30% more
So,
parkings if you took out.
Maybe 20.
Yeah, so you'd end up with 105 back there,
105.
maybe. Yeah, depending on how it lays out.
If you do that.
Because we'll wanna see, parking islands with landscaping and all that, and that would all be included as well.
I can't, I mean, yeah, that's just, it's not feasible for. And, no tenant's gonna stick around for that. That's why this shopping center is just, it's poorly built, poorly laid out. False parking analysis. And, hard, of all my properties, this is the hardest center, by far at least. I have 25 properties. It's hands down, the hardest, but I get a lot of leasing calls on it.
And I was trying to keep up with your 4 improvement list uses.
Yeah,
Number 1,
the use
approved
list.
parking matrix.
Number 2,
One.
yep,
Crab King's contingent on the church being out in Randy's agreement.
yes,
Is that
yep.
correct? And was there?
That was 3 and 4, so the Crab King CO would be for the church being out, and then also having the agreement,
Randy's agreement.
yes. Because that gives them the extra parking.
Would that be debated in multiple,
I think you can make one motion or you could read all that, and, I mean, however you want to do it, as long as those are all solidified.
we're doing a legal look into that, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
That's why
It illustrates this issue. Okay, it will eliminate the issue that you're talking about.
yes, it will eliminate it. I would like it,
So now you're like, am I doing it to keep this project stabilized or which you're not gonna say X?
There's a cost versus reward.
Right.
That's an extra $500,000. Got underground plumbing already laid there, I think. It's ready to be developed. I don't see anything future developed over there except for some storage. That's a need. So it's not a good situation. I I guess I'll take what y'all give me, and I'll ask the owners if they're willing to develop that. In fact, I need more than 4 months to develop that. 8 months. Just to lay the cement and get the architectural designs and get my guys to draw up the plans, the landscape. So I don't know what's under that ground. That's laid and ready. So I'd like to be able to lease it like that's coming, just like y'all thought it was, and have to account for it. That's subject to a contingency that says if I don't do it, then you can revoke all the tenants. Obviously, I don't own this particular center, so, but the owners are not gonna have much of a choice. My ideal world is just release the parking and let me do what I do. But I understand I understand where y'all are coming from. If y'all did that for everyone that came down here and talked, then it would be, I get what it does, it's terrible.
I'm afraid that's what got us into this.
Yeah.
That right there is what's got us into this mess. Nothing against you, but that's in history.
Yeah.
In history, that's what's.
I mean, that's the problem with Houston. Look at Houston's of it.
All right.
So, and this can, and the change of use is huge. At least tells you I cannot put in a center. They're gonna just destroy the center.
The approved list is going to destroy the center.
No, by approving the new uses, it would forbid these from destroying the center.
Oh, okay, I got you, I misunderstood, I thought, I was trying to figure out how it's going the other way. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good, and whenever y'all are, I've got a motion, so. Let's discuss.
So just to be clear, Randy's barbecue parking agreement, church is gone. Build out that plot of land, right? And,
So that's, so the four that I talked about were Randy's parking and then, church out, right? Those were the two contingent items that they would be saying, approving the zoning contingent on these things. And then the two other items that would be solidified by the zoning would be the new parking table and the new use list.
okay.
If you decide you want to go back to the owners this week and tell them, hey, this is happening and this is how it got recommendation to the council, and so this is going to eliminate our ability to do anything in the future. We're going to have to keep going back. But we did come up with an idea that if we built out this other parking area, we could eliminate having to come back all the time.
I know the owners, they'll build out the parking if I don't have to build out the parking.
Okay, so then that would be something we could present to council
Okay.
as then part of a development agreement, which they would then additionally add the contingency of getting a development agreement with you guys for the parking to be built in 8 months or whatever.
Okay.
And allowing, and I'm not saying they're gonna do it, I'm just saying this is what you would be saying you could do, is that if we can just be allowed to lease this up right now, we will build this up and put these guys on temp COs for 8 months.
Anybody.
Yeah, anybody on the approved list.
Right, let me just go.
And just let
And
you
in
go.
8 months, if it's dirt, kick them all out.
Right, with temp COs.
But I get my commission up front.
Yeah.
We don't.
Got that salesman over there to me.
So that's how it would move forward to council. We're talking about those four things, and then the fifth thing would be the parking and the development agreement, the additional parking lot with a development agreement with council, at council only, is where you
This
would.
Monday.
Yes, that's where we
Not
would.
coming back again?
No, assuming they would agree to that. Assuming they would agree to letting you do what you do, under the guise that we're gonna do a development agreement that you get the parking done in this amount of time.
Okay. Either that or the center just gets condemned, I mean, so they're not gonna have much of a choice, I mean, they took this back, but they have they're heavily vested. So, I mean, one of those things that costs them business.
I think, given our opinions and options, they would have, so Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the use list as submitted. We approve the parking matrix as presented. We have a contingent CO for DraftKings based on the church being out, as well as Randy's, agreement, parking.
Yes.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Ah,
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, item 4 has been approved with the conditions.
Thank y'all, appreciate it. So, I go to council on Monday.
Yeah, so I guess talk with your owners and about what we discussed about a development agreement and doing the extra parking. And then, if they're, open to it, let us know ASAP and
Yeah, I'll
we
call you
can
right
put
away.
like a draft.
Get something dropped up so I can get it all knocked out on Monday,
Yeah, hopefully.
right?
Yeah, we would have to get that all into council, or we'd have to have it on the agenda on Friday and have it all at least pretty much buttoned up
Right.
so that they can approve to sign it.
And then
But,
I can, if that's done, I can just continue.
right.
All right.
But I don't know if that can all be done in that time frame, so it may have to go to council the following month as a development agreement, but that, hopefully they would give you the allowances that we just talked about tonight to go with Crab Kings.
Okay.
I want you to come and visit Red Oak.
I know.
Where do you live? Dallas?
North Dallas.
Okay, I've been to North Dallas all the time.
I've never seen you come over.
I've been, was in Addison the other day, 3 times.
I was there today.
No, we're not.
We have one more item.
One more item.
Okay,
All right,
thanks,
thank you,
guys.
appreciate it.
Eloise, send me that stuff. 5 minutes.
See ya.
Moving on to agenda item 5, which is conduct a public hearing and consider a residential replat, Methodist Street addition, creating lots 1, 2, and 3, block 1, from lot 1, block 1, and providing a shared access easement on approximately 1.0302 acres of land. The property is located 240 feet south of Bob White Drive and east of Methodist Street. Identified as lot 1, block A, Methodist Street addition, and addressed as 324 Methodist Street, Cedar Red Oak, in County, Texas. To repeat as Paul Edson Sam 22-12, requested by the city of Red Oak. Staff, please.
The request to subdivide lot 1, block 1 of Methodist Street addition into 3 blocks of development, 3 single-family homes. Access to the property will be from a shared access easement on Methodist Street. Lot 1 and 2 will be approximately 8,400 square feet, and lot 3 will be approximately 28,075 square feet. Zoning to this property was approved by City Council on August 1st, 2022. Lot is in conformance with the approved staff review and plat. This is, public hearing.
Thank you. Did you want to add something?
No.
All right, this is a, public hearing. So those in favor of this item, you can please go first. If you're against this item, please speak. And have a motion to close the public hearing.
I motion to close it.
Public hearing has been closed. Commissioner, do you have any?
I have a question. Ben, this is the one that we voted down last time, correct?
That was the zoning. The zoning was then subsequently passed by council, and so this is the replat, which is merely a ministerial act, but it is a residential replat, so we have to hold a public hearing on it.
Okay, so I have a question, and I mean, I'm kind of like Scott on this as far as the safety aspect of it. So the person in lot 1 and 2, they're gonna have a driveway, and basically, do they or do they not have access to that thoroughfare going between their homes?
So yes, they have, this is a common access easement that's for lot 1, 2, and 3. So this portion right here, will have a single driveway that then you can, put a secondary driveway off it, almost like an alley, is the way it'll function, from here to here. And so they'll have their driveway come in off here, and he'll have his come off here, and then the guy in the back will have a long driveway back to, the back. I assume I'm sharing my screen. Is everybody looking at that?
Okay.
Okay.
So I guess my concern, as it was last time, if I'm in the back lot 3 and I decide I want to park my RVs and loud motorcycles behind lot 1, is that going to be a problem, or is it just going to go straight to a driveway to their yard where there's not concrete behind their houses?
There's kind of a lot of different things. Is the driveway will only go right up the center. The main, let's call it an alley for this discussion, so we can distinguish between driveways and alleys. So the alley will connect to Methodist Road and go straight back to lot 3, where then however they want to set up their house, like with a circular drive or something like that, will be out there. At lot 3, and then lot 1 and lot 2 will have driveways coming off of the alley to access their garages. Yes, lot 3 could potentially pour some concrete back here and park an RV. It's back off the road. It would meet the intent of the zoning ordinance that when we talk about storage of RVs and things like that, it needs to be on a concrete pad behind fences so it can't be seen from the right-of-way. Now, I also want to mention these lots are super deep compared to standard lots in other subdivisions. Lot 1 and lot 2 are both 168 feet deep, which is, a standard lot is about anywhere from 110 to 130. So it's a pretty deep lot. So even if someone parked, along their back fence, it's far enough away from the house.
Well, and the only reason I bring this up because where I am right now in Oak Tree Estates, technically, when we bought this property, we have a 2-foot easement behind our property where we could go back there and clean it, maintain our fixes. But the city did something similar to this, and this guy has this street blocked off as if it's his. So in order for me to get anywhere behind my fence, I have to dismantle my fence to get to the property. So that's my concern really with if that person decides, hey, I want to put a gate up there so no one can come down there and turn around, or a person in lot 1 or lot 2 decides that we have company over, they're going to park in that driveway. Does the tenant in lot 3 have the right to tell them they can't park on there?
Yeah, so that's what this common access easement says, and it's memorialized on the plat here, that the common access easement is for the use of the following properties. Improvements shall not be made. There might be a typo in there. Oh, yeah, no improvements shall be made that impede ingress or egress along this easement. So, you can't park here, you can't build a gate. Now, if you wanted to build a gate right here at the end of the easement, that would be fine.
But is that technically his property though, since it's a driveway through?
Yeah, it's his property. It's lot 3's property, and there's an easement on it that allows 1 and 2 to have access to this easement. And so he could gate right here, and that would still allow these guys to have access to the alley. And then he's gating the alley back here. Now, he would have to run that past fire. I don't know what the fire requirement would be, if fire would require a Knox box or something like that on that gate.
Well, I know that here we could not put a gate up because it's a public street. Yeah, or is the city building that, or are they building it privately?
This is not a public street. This is a common access easement for the property owners only.
Okay, all right, cool.
Thank you, James. Leroy, you have anything?
I don't think so. I think last time we had like a dead even 3-3 vote on this thing and it went to council and it got approved.
Should have been a 3-1 vote. Incorrect vote.
Right.
And that was my fault. I don't know who was alternate, who wasn't.
Yeah.
So it would have been, for clarification, a 3-1.
Okay.
But
Attorney, you have anything?
I definitely, but I'm letting everybody else speak.
Oh. I think the floor is yours, Scott.
Okay, well, I heard, and just give me a moment and then I'll rant and then I'll be done. I heard at church on Sunday, don't die on the molehill if you're gonna die fighting for something, die on a mountain, and this is a mountain issue for me. This has caused me a great deal of concern because of the vote, because of the reasoning that we had, and where it went. In this request to fill it, and I'm gonna read what I wrote so I can keep on track. In this request to fill any approval, we are creating potential traffic and safety hazard in an already overtaxed roadway of high volumes and extreme narrow access. Although there is roadway expansion planned, this will still be placing added traffic trying to ingress and egress from this neighborhood. While the fire department has stated that they can service this, and turning radius will be extremely tight into this area, which could completely stop traffic and cause more traffic issues throughout the entire area. This is obviously a financial gain over quality of life issue that should not be taken lightly. Looking at the lots leading up to Methodist, if we can look from the school up that street, it is evidence that the residents purchased their property, and what many of us also probably purchase our properties as the highest monetary asset of things that we will own. They bought this and purchased this with distance between themselves and their neighbors. A statement was made in council that they have approved many others right on top of each other with no distance or very little distance between those homes. However, I would say to this statement that those were new housing additions and that was a choice of the buyer to buy in this type of neighborhood and was theirs freely and not forced upon them. We are taking that option away from the current neighbors who made their investment not to have a home butting up feet away from the back or sides of their property. I would say that each of us in this room, if we would stop and think about this being in our neighborhood, would ask this question: is that the quality of life that we are wanting citizens who currently live here? In the council many years ago, we were warned by a traffic flow expert that to be very careful with over-densifying areas described as very limited east-west thoroughfare accesses, as we only have 664 and Red Oak Road running east and west. These are also to be very cautious on arterial roads feeding them, and in this case, Methodist. This project is another example of adding too much density where it makes no sense, in my opinion, which is just my opinion. But once the land is gone, it is gone. This type of area would serve the citizens much better with much needed park area or low volume citizen advantage uses. Jam 3 houses on top of invested citizens causing more traffic and safety concerns to me does not fit within the best interest of the city or citizens. While I don't see from watching the last council meeting that these concerns were held as valid, they are to me. I'm not a rubber stamp, and I will never be a rubber stamp, and therefore I am going to strongly oppose this once again, as we did in the last council meeting.
Amen, brother.
I appreciate Councilman Lindsay. He's definitely safety first. He lets everybody know that too. So I appreciate that.
And Methodist is going to have to be widened eventually as we get that data center and it comes down there, and it's going to take more yard from those front two. And I'm sure they're going to be screaming bloody murder.
So Methodist is being widened. Contract's been signed with the contractor, and we are working on the start dates with the contractor right now.
Right, so that goes back to my point, as we take yards from the front of them, they're gonna wanna park in the alleyway, and the person along the third lot feel as though that's their property. We're gonna create, I think, a potential problem and a safety hazard, like I've been saying all the time. It's only gonna make this worse. And I get that the city
Well,
has to,
the access easement is wide enough to have, it's 24 feet wide. It's 27 feet wide. So with 24 feet of concrete, it's basically like having a 2-lane road up to the first, or to the end of the access easement for both houses. So
right,
once it gets past there, then yes, the owner could do something much narrower. But then the first 2 lots don't have access past that point, right? So this owner, lot 3, could have people park up and down here all they want. If he only did a 10-foot wide driveway, then there is plenty of room to park on both sides and still get through there. And that would just be a choice of the owner.
but if he puts a fence up there where the 27-foot is, that he has the potential, and as an emergency, and you got emergency vehicles there, you're blocking access to the other 2, as well as traffic up and down Methodist.
Well, you're not blocking access to it, because you've got access here, you've got access from the frontage as well, which is how any fire emergency is gonna access a property that fronts a lot like that. I mean, it's just like the lot next door, they're gonna park in front and access the house that way.
Okay.
So the only need for them to go back here would be for a lot 3 fire in the back, or a lot 3 emergency. So that,
I guess the idea, I guess you could put 1 house on this parcel, right?
on,
The parcel we're talking about, 3,
yeah, instead of 3, yeah, it could be a 1-acre lot.
it would be 1 acre lot.
Yeah. But with our access to sewer in the city, that would be a poor use of the land from a economic standpoint. So, and that's, that's where your opinions lay in, right?
Opinion is economic.
Yeah, so,
They can put 3 homes on that parcel to make it.
Well, that's almost like saying I could sell my front yard and
you
put a
could
house on
far
the front.
more, in an acre, but, this is what we proposed as, because this is what I would have ended up proposing to any developer that wanted to cut it up into 5 or 6 lots.
Right.
I would have said, no way, 3 max. Because like I said, you have lots that are oversized comparatively, to the ones around them, or to the ones in new subdivisions and to the newer developments in the south. And yeah, Mr. Lindsay is correct. They're smaller than, the lots next door and throughout, but I have a different position. You guys are elected officials and appointed officials, and I look for the economic health of the city. And so whenever I see something like this, my first thought is, does the value of the development support the infrastructure that serves it? So that's where my mind goes versus, a leadership standpoint and an elected official capacity. You get to pick one or the other, or take into account both of them. But I'll tell you that, this road came in way over budget, and everything we're looking at from a budgetary standpoint is insanely over budget. I mean, today I was putting together cost estimates for new roads and things like that, and I mean, just the 5 projects I looked at were like quintuple the city's current budget.
Right, but with the,
Hundreds of millions
with
of
the
dollars
income,
of infrastructure.
yeah, but weren't we also talking about with the completion of these data centers, that should be able to assist us in some of the expenditures that the city is going to have forthcoming that we definitely need?
I'm I don't want to get into all the agreements that were made, but I don't know what the total tax revenue from their sites will be. I can't speak on that. I don't know all the details of it, so.
Right. I
I
mean,
wouldn't
there
want to
was,
speak on it, but
So Ben, could you put townhomes on this parcel?
certainly, yeah, I mean, the width, I mean, you could do so much more than what is being proposed. We've got, 125 feet of width. You could move that access easement up to and make an alley along these lots here, and then townhomes would face the alley. I mean, there's a multitude of what you could do. But in my opinion, you would keep it residential, and I know that it feels like dense residential, but it's not dense residential. It's 3 per acre. I think the comp plan and all of our stuff talks about 3.6 units per acre. So it's under that. Yeah, I mean, it's a flagpole with a split.
I mean, I would agree with Scott. I agree with Scott. That would be like me building a house in front of my house. Yeah, the room is there, but my other 2 council members that live in my neighborhood will have a fit if I got another house right there in front of me.
There's some houses on Joe Wilson that are set back like that. They're bigger lots, but they.
Can I go back to the traffic issue that we already have there? If you guys go up and down Methodist, you know, that is high traffic, because there's only 2 east-west roads in this entire city. Only 2. Red Oak Road and there's Ovilla Road. There's no other east-west thoroughfare. The artery between those 2 is Methodist. So you look at traffic flow between those 3 streets, and there's more traffic on those 3 streets than the entire city put together. If we're gonna add in and outs in that same area, if you go and walk it and look at it, it just, to me, it's infringing on other people's quality of life and their investment.
So right now, the way it's proposed, there's one in and out, one driveway.
Right.
And right now today, this was going to be up for sale. So someone could buy it, split it in half without, with coming and talking to you, but you can't deny it because it meets the zoning. It's a ministerial act. So they could put 2 houses on it and have 2 driveway connections. So with this, the thought was, well, we're going to stop someone from doing that, plus get the value of 3 houses with the reduction of driveway connections. We've got 1 driveway connection with higher value of land use.
It's the city's property, so they couldn't do that unless the city sold it.
Right.
Yeah, so if it was used for something else, but at this time it's been deemed as not a usable in the grand scheme.
Did they send out notices to the neighbors as we did with other developments?
Yeah, we have to. Yeah.
Did we get any response back from the neighbors?
On the original zoning, there was, but not for the replat. Right.
And what were the objections for the original one, if you remember?
What did the guy say? He said something about a fire, and his house was pretty close to the property line, but I think we measured it in the meeting, and it was not very close to the property line.
So what would be the distance from the houses?
Yeah, he's about 30 to 35 feet from the property line.
Okay. All right.
It could be sold as 1 lot. It's already 1 lot. It's to maximize the value of city-owned property. Right. But that's not to say that someone couldn't buy all 3 parcels and build one house on it and just keep the other 2 or replat it into one lot.
So it was originally one lot and then the city plotted it into 3?
Yeah, that's what the previous zoning request was to allow that, and then that's what this plat shows.
The city, hey, they make the most money if they sell 3 parcels instead of that one.
Right.
I want to make it real clear that I don't have any problem with you making that presentation. It's your job. That is your job. That is your job.
Commissioner Knapp, you have anything else? Okay, and can I have a motion for agenda item 5, please?
I make a motion to,
Go ahead.
I make a motion to reject item 5 as is presented. That's just me.
Right, so we have to make a positive motion, and then you all can make the votes whether yay or nay.
Okay.
I think Ms. Stanfield had a motion, I believe, exactly.
Go ahead, Mr.
Resolution to approve item 5.
James, did y'all hear on Zoom?
No, I didn't hear.
I move we approve item 5 as presented.
All in favor?
You don't have a second, do you have a second? Was there a second, or did it die for a lack of a second? I mean, you can obviously second it, right?
Yeah, it's just a reminder that it can't fail. It's a ministerial act. It's essentially already approved. It just has to go through this process. So
What's the purpose of it being on there?
it's a public hearing, so we have, on a residential replat, we have to hold a public hearing. If it was a replat of a commercial property, we wouldn't have to hold it.
You're telling me that I can't go against it anyway.
I
don't believe that's correct.
Okay.
I believe that they have the right to override that. They did before, but I don't.
You're right. I think we could deny it. They can override it like they did, but.
That's what I was saying.
Guys, for lack of a second, there's no action.
So the public hearing is to bring up any deed restrictions, if any are known, in a public setting. That's the point of the public hearing.
So is there a reason?
Do we even need to have a motion, do any kind of vote tonight?
We do, or we don't, do not have?
Do, yeah.
Okay, that was my point. Do, and you're saying we have to have a vote, but we have to vote in favor of it, and that's not correct. So,
I guess they can't, you don't have to, I guess, necessarily vote for it, but at the end of the day, it has to pass. I'll confirm with Bob, but, I mean, yeah, so, I mean,
But
make whatever motions you want to do, and if we have to bring it back, that's fine, and if he says that it's
But
not
didn't we vote it down before in city council?
You're talking about the zoning, not the plat.
Okay.
We're talking about only the plat.
Okay,
The zoning has been approved.
okay.
We're not on the same page now, so what do we able to?
You can table it, you can hold a vote, and if the vote is no, then I'll just confirm with the city attorney of what we're supposed to do.
If that's for a lack of a second, then it passes.
I vote no, or to table.
Lack of a second, and no action is taken, then no action is taken.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know, did you want a second? Because I wasn't.
Yeah.
I don't want to second it. I don't.
motion, Mr. Craig Way,
Died for a lack of a second.
motion dies for a lack of second. For agenda item 5.
If there's no other motion, then there's no action can be taken.
So there's no other motion. So, can I have a motion to close the.
Sure. Motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All right, thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks again, Emmett.
Hey, Scott,
Yes, sir.
you know me, I'm all for growth in Red Oak, but not any growth.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
All right, guys, I'll see you later. I am off. And I'll be briefing. Going to have seafood and gain 20 pounds.
Enjoy.